Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another podcast episode here today. Good to be back. It's been a while. It's just me here today on my own. Hope you're all doing well. And pull up the chat real quick so I can see that everything's working properly. We should be good to go. Give me a second here. Yo, yo, yo. Sorry about that. The echo. Got the chat here for you guys to see what's going on. Yeah, but I hope you guys are doing well. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit the like button if you're watching the recording or watching live. It's really appreciated. Gets up in the algorithm, results in more lit future pods and streams. This will be just a simple classic stream, answering your guys' questions, talking about some many exciting things to come in the world of fiction, the world of sports, just in general. You know how you guys, you know how we do it on this part or on these parts if you watched stream before. Hope you guys are doing well, by the way. So we're going to see if anybody asked any pre-established questions. By the way, you can do that in the Discord or in any comment section of any video. I'll see it, I'll note it, and I'll answer it at the beginning of each stream. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing well, God willing. We got some questions here. While you guys ask your questions in the chat, of course, please feel free. Please feel free. Let's see here. So, first question: could Killer Bee defeat Pain in Jiraiya's situation or Naruto's? Right. So Killer Bee is nothing to laugh at as far as power scaling is concerned. He is a perfect Jinchuriki, was a perfect Jinchuriki before Naruto. We see him really get tested to his limits against Kisame specifically. Obviously, Kisame had advantages that didn't allow Killer Bee to fight at his full potential for a lot of the time, specifically Samahada and his ability to absorb ninjutsu and chakra with the abilities he possessed, such as the Water Dome, which was very disadvantageous for Killer Bee. So that's Kisame, right? And Kisame is considered by many to at least be top five in the Akatsuki, while conversely, Pain is considered by many to be the strongest in the Akatsuki. You know, he's always debated up there with Obito and Itachi as far as who is the strongest within the Akatsuki organization. So, could Killer Bee defeat Pain? No. The simple answer is no. Pain is too dominant of a shinobi for Killer Bee. Killer Bee struggled with Kisame, right? And Pain has his own advantageous abilities that will be very troublesome for Killer Bee. He could absorb ninjutsu, right? He could reflect any ninjutsu that Pain can throw at him. His speed when he is in his prime and at his full capabilities is arguably above even KCM1 Naruto's speed, who outsped the Raikage, who's faster than Killer Bee, and that's been explicitly stated multiple times. So, simple answer is no. Killer Bee would not be able to defeat Pain point blank period, regardless if he was in Jiraiya's or Naruto's position. He's just simply not at that level as a shinobi. Now he'd have a better chance in Naruto's position because in that scenario, Pain is more fatigued and he's already had a prolonged battle with others, right? With that being Konoha, and used a chaotic Shinatensei on top of that. But I still believe, on a bounce of probabilities, no, he still wouldn't defeat Pain. Make sure the right screen is showing. Yeah, it should be. All right, let's make it show. Let's make it show. Make sure my audio is good. Yep. But yeah, that'll be my answer to that question. That's an interesting question. All right, Killer Bee is it Jinchuriki like Naruto? I'm sure some wonder how that would go, right? If it was him in that position. Additionally, folks, if you guys see to the bottom right, you guys have probably already seen it. I want to make it known that I'll do custom reactions for you guys here, custom videos as far as me making a video myself. To ask for price because those vary greatly depending on what you want, how long, topic, etc. And I even debate. I've been trying to debate more often. I actually tried to set up a few debates for you folks. Hopefully, those still come to fruition. If you want a live debate here and now, there's the price. If you want a skilled debate, that could vary depending on the topic and things of that nature. So, um, but yeah, any questions you may have, folks, feel free to ask them. Any questions at all. We try to keep it versatile. As a matter of fact, so I can see both at the same time. You go to do the pop out chat so I could see while I read the questions that were asked prior to the stream starting. Give me a second here, folks. Been quite some time. Definitely longed being on stream, certainly. Give me a second, folks. I pull this up. Feel free to ask any questions, like I said. All right. Let me hear myself real quick to make sure everything's sounding good. All right, sounds all right. Sounds all right. Just making sure. Got the chat here. So there's some more pre-established questions here. Let's go ahead and see. All right. So first, could Tobarama defeat the fourth Raikage? I would say more than likely no, because of who he lost to. Right. Historically, we know he lost to King at least on one occasion with help. That with that being the second Raikage. Obviously, the context of the battle is debated upon. It's stated that he was snared, almost implied that it was an attempt to sneak attack Tobarama during a Kage summit. People will argue, well, that was an off-guard moment. Simply put, I always refute that by saying, look, Tobarama is one of the most calculated and wary shinobi in the verse, one of the most intelligent on top of that. Why would he be completely off guard during a tense Kage summit where I'm sure opposing interests were discussed and I'm sure arguments were had? Why would he have his guard down there? Why? And especially with help from another Kage, how did he get near death in that encounter if Kin and Gin performed so badly as Edo Tenseis, even with their V2 versions? I believe one of them was able to use their V2 version, rather. But how did he perform so poorly with help? That's the question. That does not make him look good, objectively speaking. He does not look good power scaling wise, losing in that manner to those individuals. Then we have him during his death. He lost to the Kin and Gin unit, right? Kinkaku and Ginkaku unit. It's debatable whether they were even there. Yes, there were 20 apparently S tier shinobi there with someone of Tobarama's caliber. That should not be a problem, right? The Hokage is arguably, supposedly, the strongest shinobi on Earth. S tier shinobi that aren't well known, right? That aren't even listed besides Kin and Gin shouldn't be able to defeat someone of his nature, his caliber. And while the fourth Kage was second to none once Minato died, his terms of speed, right? His speed was unmatched, arguably. So I would determine that I do believe context would matter in this matchup. I'm not saying Toriyama has no chance of defeating the fourth Raikage. I'm not saying it's impossible, but theoretically, it would be more unlikely, in my estimation, that he would defeat the fourth Raikage. Or fourth Raikage would have the speed advantage right from the beginning of the battle. Simply put, unless Toriyama had some crazy prep time and had a plan A to plan Z ahead of time, I see him losing this battle. The fourth Raikage would simply just blitz him physically. And again, I don't subscribe to the Jubito scaling whatsoever. I've debunked that many times. I'm not going to do that again. So no, I don't believe Tobarama would defeat with fourth Raikage, more than likely. So I believe I let everyone know that I'm live. Yes. Okay. Yeah, folks, any questions at all? Feel free. Any questions? More the merrier. All right, so I still got a few questions here. Shout out to the individuals that sent them. Thoughts on people becoming Hitler sympathizers in wake of growing anti-Semitism. So this is a strange phenomenon that I've seen grow throughout the last few months, perhaps the last couple of years. It's very bizarre. This weird conspiratorial idea that the individuals being attacked. I'm not going to even say the name because I heard it's making you demonetized or something. The individuals being attacked, right, by anti-Semitism are somehow conspiring against the rest of society, and that they're in higher levels of economic and societal success. And it's very strange to me. I think any sort of anti-group rhetoric is very bizarre, and it's definitely hateful, regardless of the source. I think it's bizarre and it's troublesome. Hopefully, that wave of anti-Semitism dies out. The Hitler sympathizers are even worse, in my opinion. It's undebatable that he was not a good person, and that there's no moral justification for the actions that he took to make others carry out his bidding. Very strange, very, very strange behavior. Um, Very bizarre. But yeah, I have noticed that quite often, unfortunately. Fortunately, it's become very common. All right, so good. That's an interesting question. I've noticed that myself. Thoughts on trying out new YouTube series? If you mean in terms of me making a new YouTube series, I'm open to many things. So I always ask people for recommendations. Uh, I've tried a few things, see what works, see what doesn't. I do enjoy other verses and scaling them. I did Cobra Kai for a while. I enjoy comic books as well. Yes, I'm open to different series. Again, feel free to give me recommendations. I'll try them out and see how they do. Go from there. Why do you make YouTube videos? So I enjoy making content. I always have, even back then when I had no traction whatsoever, almost basically no subscribers either. So I always enjoyed it. Enjoyed making content. Enjoyed the exercise of, you know, actively trying to exercise my ability to entertain, my ability to create content. It's something that I've always enjoyed and probably always will, which is why I continue to do it, even at this point. So it's simply something I actually genuinely enjoy doing. I really do. So, uh, why do you make YouTube videos? I just read that, didn't I? Updates on Noodles beef. So that's dead. I'm not even going to talk about that loser no more. He ducked. I paid for a ticket. Still made excuses. I was pretty clear to me that that was going to happen. He's broke, but yet he acts like he's busy all the time. I have nothing else to say. He's a loser. Future collabs. I think right now, from my observation in the Naruto space at least, the Naruto content creator space, everyone is on their own path right now. They seem very busy, including myself, obviously with my own IRL career as outside of YouTube. So shout out to all these guys, Thunder God, Sage, Virtue, Six. They all have their own path. They all have to find their own path, and they're all doing their own thing, and I respect that. They all have their own path to success. So it's hard to kind of have that moment where everyone, someone has the same amount of time as the other, the same, the schedules align, things of that nature. I do want to collab more in the future, no doubt about it. Right now, it's just easier said than done. What's going on, John Bentley? Thoughts on Hassan controversy? Hassan was someone I never really cared for, maybe had a slight dislike for multiple reasons. As far as the controversy, it seems that with the dog, I'm a huge dog fan. I grew up with dogs. I've had multiple dogs throughout my life. It wasn't a good look. He seemed to not show sympathy towards the dog, whether he shocked it or used a vibration collar, whatever the fuck he wants to call it. It was a bad look, and it showed that he lacks sympathy for animals. That he doesn't care for animals. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he said he doesn't give a fuck about dogs, something like that. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but Hassan's just not the best of people, in my opinion. I don't think he's scum of the earth, but I don't think he's the best person. Never did, and just kind of reinforced my presuppositions of him. Just a strange character, in my opinion. Mistakes you made in your YouTube career? That's a good question. Mistakes I made in my YouTube career, I'd say at times I would lead with my competitive spirit. And I think when you're actively, aggressively competitive, that the optics aren't the best. That's why people like shout out to Thunder God and guys like that are so successful because they don't lead with that. We all have it. All the content creators have that, some sort of competitiveness and ego, sure, but you shouldn't lead with that, especially early on in your YouTube career. I regret doing that at times because I wanted to win a debate, admittedly. Um, I don't think I'm an asshole, but I am very competitive. You guys have seen it in practice at times, to my detriment. At times, I'll admit that. That's probably one of my biggest mistakes. I'll probably say that, if I'm being honest. Do you feel like your friends are yes men sometimes? Have you ever noticed your friends? If you can only debate one person you don't like for the rest of their life, who would it be? Do I ever notice my friends are yes men? Perhaps I've had friends in the past that were. I don't like that. I've met people like that. I wouldn't call friends that have that kind of nature. I believe it just seems disingenuous to me, and it makes me question whether they have ulterior motives to get on my good side. Doesn't seem like a genuine attempt to make a connection as a friend. I had friends like that, most likely. Now I'm more calculated as far as who my friends are, who I connect myself with. I've noticed that throughout my my travels, if you want to call it that. To me, it's just very disingenuous. It's not a bona fide person or a bona fide attempt to make. a connection with you as a friend. So, have you ever noticed you were yes man for your friends? I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, yeah, I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to fit in with other people and be liked by other people. That doesn't lead to success long term, doesn't. You have to be calculated in who you spend your energy on, and who you shouldn't. Um, you got to be very calculated, very wise, emotionally stable on who you connect with, because it matters greatly. As the older you get, in my opinion, the more that becomes very apparent. So, yeah, folks, any questions at all, feel free. Any questions at all? Go through these questions. I'll start giving my takes on a lot of things I've been seeing. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions at all, really. If you could debate one person you don't like for the rest of your life, who would it be? One person? It's a tough question. One person for the rest of my life? Uh, Someone where I'd get something from it. Maybe someone like Destiny or something. Just continuously defeat him. I don't hate him, but I'm not the fondest of him. Updates on Batman. Going back to what I said earlier, everyone's been on their own path, their own life journeys. We just haven't had schedules that aligned. That's even with Shinobi as well. The reason he hasn't been around a long time is just because of that. There's no other reason besides that. That's just life sometimes. Life is peak and valleys. Life is volatile in the way that it plays out. And I'm not being pessimistic or cynical. That's just the reality. But yeah, folks, any questions at all? Sports, anime, politics, controversies, conspiracies, current events, whatever you guys want to ask, feel free. To enjoy the discussions, truly. Who is the strongest character each Hokage could defeat? Let's see here. So, Hashirama, Madara, I guess you could say. Madara is the strongest that you could defeat. Tobirama, the strongest he could defeat? That's a good question. Tobirama's an interesting one. I'd say maybe a Prime Sani, if I'm just spitballing here. People always ask, where do you get that conclusion from? It's just from what I've taken, what I've gathered. It's that simple. Hiruzen, Prime Hiruzen, Tobirama, perhaps, or Prime Sani, perhaps. It's stated. So Minato, probably someone like, honestly, arguably someone like Pain. On the safer side, I'd say someone like Kisame, perhaps. Someone like the Raikage, perhaps. But if you really want to highball Minato, someone like Itachi or Pain. Fifth, Tsunade's not that great. Honestly, I'd say maybe someone like Onuki, if I'm being generous. That's even debatable. She would defeat a weaker Kage. I'm not saying Onuki's weak, but the weaker side of the Kage is someone in that caliber would be someone she'd defeat. Someone like Kakazu, perhaps, she'd defeat, arguably. Kakashi, if we use the strongest version of Kakashi, he's defeating Kaguya, arguably. For using Kakashi during the war arc, honestly, I think you could take an Asani, perhaps. Maybe not in their Sani plus forms, but someone like Jiraiya or something when he has this insane amount of chakra and he's spamming Raikuris, things of that nature. Perhaps Asani. It's very arguable. Someone like Tsunade, I'd say, safer bet that he'd defeat. Then we go to the seventh Hokage, Naruto. Naruto defeats almost anybody. Anybody. The strongest person he could beat, Kaguya or Momoshiki or Fuse Momoshiki or full power. Is there anything interesting going on with Marvel at the moment? So I've been on my comic book arc for a little. The Ultimate storyline is something I've been reading currently. I've been more so, which I'm going to discuss later, on the DC bandwagon because of the absolute storyline. Batman, absolute Batman, absolute Superman, absolute Wonder Woman, peak stuff, amazing just angles that they're taking with the stories of these characters. As far as anything interesting going on with Marvel, I know the Ultimate storyline. I heard there's an Ultimate Wolverine, issue out there that's very good as well as obviously the movies to come, which will be the big talks next year and the year after. With Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. Besides that, not too much, not anything else that comes to mind, I'd say. So, but yeah, any questions at all, folks, feel free. Um, while you guys ask more stuff, going to Boruto. Right, Boruto's been a topic of discussion here. So, since the beginning of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, I believe Boruto has catapulted itself into a mainstream, highly popular new gen anime. And Boruto Uzumaki is now one of the top new gen aura farmers. If you see on the screen itself, I'm implying that, I'm indicating that, right? So the reason for that is because he's had great character development in this arc of his life, right? Ever since the plot twist, ever since the reversal of lives between him and Kawaki, he's had this insanely well done development as a character, as a shinobi, as a growing shinobi, right, in his career. His mentality has evolved, not just his power scaling, but his mentality has evolved. He doesn't see the shinobi world through that rose-colored lens he once did when he was a child and his father was taking care of everything, right? Before the Otsutsuki came to Earth and Ishiki and the Kara, etc. He's now seeing life through a very clear and grounded lens, is what I like to call it. And because of that, he's become much more honorable and respectable to the masses. People respect, they respect sacrifice, right? They respect strength in tough times. And that's the reason that he's the newest aura farmer we have, right? He stands firm even in the toughest of times. That's why Gojo became the guy. That's why Jinwoo became the guy. In the past, that's why Naruto became the guy. Goku, Vegeta, all these guys. He now shares that characteristic, right? And that's why he's Eugen's greatest aura farmer, arguably today. Um, so I've been greatly enjoying the narrative, excuse me, that the Boruto Tubal Vortex has gone in. I believe the Shinji are great antagonists for Boruto. They're going to test his resolve more than just his power. They're going to test his resolve as well. So I'm greatly enjoying that as well. Another thing I saw that was interesting is many people are starting to claim that Sarada could defeat top shinobi from the Naruto verse, not the Boruto verse, but the Naruto verse. Just saying she could defeat Jubito, TMS Kakashi, people like that. Now, the Demon's Kakashi one's interesting. I know she reacted to Shinju's, right? But unless someone can tell me definitively, I don't see anything that indicates that Hikari or Hidari, excuse me, and Ruyu are relative in power to Jura. Jura is by far and away the strongest. He's shown power scaling feats to indicate this. Now, for my understanding and observations, there's nothing that indicates the other Shinju are as strong as he is. He seems to be the leader, both in terms of the hierarchy they have is in terms of leadership and in terms of power. So I need to see more before I can conclude, unless I miss something. I'll admit it. That to conclude that Sarada is it could defeat DMS Kakashi or DMS Kakashi blitzed an exponentially times stronger Kaguya. That's what he did. That's just insanely and wildly impressive. So it's going to be there has to be more evidence for me to conclude that definitively or safely at the very least. I do think she beats a lot of people in the verse. She did explicitly blitz and damage Bora, who was in Kara Inner, who was stated with Kara Inner stated to have the war potential of Hokage Naruto, right? So I do think she'd beat Sasani, people like the Sani, probably people like Hashirama, honestly. Sounds insane, but honestly she would. This goes back to that kind of topic we had when Suikage talked about Sakura versus Sakura, adult Sakura versus Madara. It sounds crazy, but objectively speaking, the evidence points to the fact that adult Sakura would defeat Madara, right? EMS Madara. So that's the same phenomenon that we're experiencing now with Sarada. Her feats are becoming so impressive to the point where it's basically undebatable where she stands power scaling wise, right? That just happens in battle-based anime, battle-based fiction, right? As generations go on, there's this sort of upward trend in ability as generations continue to progress, right? From, well, Hashirama's the exception. He was the strongest until Naruto surpassed him. But aside from that, from Tobirama to Hiruzen to Minato, one surpassed the next, right? And then Naruto surpassed all of them, and now Boruto seems to have the potential to surpass him. So that's just the upward trend that we see, right? So it is what it is. People like to shoot the messenger, so to speak, but you just got to take it for what it is. That's just the reality. It's just the reality, whether that's an unfortunate thing for you or a fortunate thing for you. If you happen to be a huge Boruto, fan, and you're more a fan of that than Naruto. That's just where we are currently. So that's been very interesting. Um, but yeah, folks, any questions at all, feel free. Feel free. Any questions at all you may have, feel free to ask them there. Let's see. If you can make one child clone, what are you having it learn do for you? Well, in our world, it'd have to be something practical. Maybe go to work for me to my 9 to 5, and I could work on other, self-made businesses. That's probably what I'd do. That would greatly amplify my time and my productivity in this world, right? In the real world. Yeah, folks, any questions at all? Feel free. Any questions at all? The more the better. The more the better. Any questions? Go on, nobody. Who's your favorite horror movie slasher? That's a great question. There's some great ones out there historically. I'd probably say slasher. Honestly, probably Jason. Jason Voorhees has the most aura, in my opinion, more than Michael Myers, more than Freddy, who he defeated arguably in combat, more than Scream, more than all these other individuals. I believe Jason has the most aura, and he's my personal favorite. He's my personal favorite. Growing up, he was as well. But speaking of horror, while you guys ask more questions, I have to discuss the peak comic book storyline known as DC Absolute storyline. It's been fantastic. I'm currently, reading through both Superman's Absolute storyline and Batman's. It's been fantastic. Spoiler alert if you haven't read it. Again, feel free to keep asking questions, by the way, about anything. But starting out with Batman's, the angle that's being taken is so interesting. It's very intriguing, right? So what's interesting is that Batman's origins are much different here, right? In terms of his social status. He was a kid with a regular family, right? A dad that was a teacher, and a mom, I believe that was a social worker. Now, his father is the only one that dies in his youth, right? They were on a zoo field trip in Gotham, and he sacrifices himself to protect the rest of the children, not just Batman, or excuse me, Bruce Wayne. He protected the entire class, right? And he lost his life protecting them. After that moment, Bruce started to change, right? He started to change his perspective on what life is and what he's meant to do. And we see these drastic decisions being made, right? He was very athletically gifted, which makes sense. He's Batman, right? But a great moment is when, what's going on, Sir Goats? Nice to see you, brother. A great moment is when he gets a scholarship to one of the best universities in the country, right? He injures himself, and it's not, he injures himself playing football. And instead of rehabbing and going back, because according to the narrative, he was good enough to go pro, he decides to retire from that and starts to apply himself to every relevant field of discipline that is necessary to become someone like Batman, right? It's very, very intriguing, right? From engineering to criminal psychology to espionage to physics to basically any field of discipline you can imagine that you would need to know. He becomes a master in it, and he becomes Batman, right? It's just truly, it's really, very well done. Very well done. Superman 1 is also very well done. Having a very, very enjoyable time reading both storylines. So, but yeah, folks, any questions at all? The more the better here. The more the better. Definitely want to come on and chat with you folks. It's been quite some time. Quite some time indeed. Right. Any questions at all, folks? Any questions at all? The more the better. Again, anime, sports, UFC's been cooking lately. We had Pereira regain the title against Ankalaev. Very, 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 very impressive. It's not an easy thing to do to regain your title for anybody historically. It's been speculated that Jones will fight Pereira in the White House next year. That's insane if that happens. Um, you know, Ilya took. We have Ilya as well in the shadows. We're waiting to see what happens with him. A lot of good stuff in the UFC currently. Of course, we have Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis, which is a clown show, but it's happening. That's just insane. All right. But yeah, folks, any questions at all? Any questions? More the merrier. More the merrier, folks. But yeah, DC has been cooking lately. They had a pretty good year. They have also the Superman film was very solid with David Cornsweet, very solid film. Heavily enjoyed it. It's been a good year for DC. Let's see if they can keep up the momentum. I really hope they do. The potential is ridiculous, ridiculous. Now it's been a while since I've talked about these other things, but the NFL has been interesting. It's been a different year for the NFL. I know a lot of you guys are NFL fans as well. Josh Allen's been dominating, are going to be the best in the league this year. Teams that we thought would dominate, not so much. The Chiefs, 2-3, very surprising. It's been an interesting year, but it's good to shake it up, because obviously dynasties are cool and all, but it starts to take away the excitement, right? When the same teams are there every year, such as when Brady was there, it gets dull, right? Because it's just the same outcome over and over. There's no excitement, there's no tension, right? So it's good to see other teams getting a chance out there. The Buccaneers, right? The Lions. Uh, it's nice to see. The NBA as well. Another interesting year for them. Second, folks. See if I have any other questions. But yeah, it's been a good, interesting year for sports here. So everyone's asking what's next for LeBron, right? Um, is he on his last legs? How much longer does he have? I guess that's someone you don't realize you really are grateful for until they're gone, until they're not playing no more. It was probably the same thing for Jordan, I'm sure, back in his day, So but another news, I've been watching debates here and there. Nice to see them kind of making a comeback in the anime community. I saw Batman post Ken Rock versus D1. That was an interesting debate, funny one, if I say so myself. Today, Troy went live on X to debate what I was discussing earlier, Sarada versus the top caliber individuals in Naruto. That was interesting. I believe he debated someone. I was there for a while. I don't know if that went to fruition or not. Seems like they were waiting for somebody. Um, Trying to see debates that are out there, the good ones. It's good to see when people do debates, when they're good debates. This is certainly not the golden era of debates currently. Not what it used to be, but let's just hope it makes a comeback. That's how ideas evolve, is through discourse, right? Through disagreement. Of course, useful disagreement, because that leads to a better conclusion. That's with all ideas in general. So But yeah, the anime community, like I said earlier, it's been kind of quiet, in my opinion. The Naruto community specifically, content creators again, doing their own thing, they have their own lives, and it's not the golden age that it once was, right? That nostalgia that we get back in 2018, 2017, 2019, the golden era, I like to call it. We're not there currently, and that's just with any train. It's peaks and valleys. It's peaks and valleys certainly. It's just the way life works, I guess you could say. Um, yeah, I'm trying to set up some debates myself. Been trying to for a while. Obviously, my schedule's been quite hectic, but I'm trying to get those in for you folks. Trying to make it happen. So yeah, folks, any questions at all? If it's a slower day, we'll go just a few more minutes. If it picks up, we'll get lit. Some days are better than others. Haven't been back in a while, so it's probably part of it. That's on me. No worries though. I do have a segment, I believe I stated it in the Discord, called Change My Mind. It's the segment that Steven Crowder, the political commentator, started a long time ago, but I'm gonna do that for anime. Anyone can come in and try to change my mind on stuff, basically. Different takes. I do plan on doing that. So, should be interesting. Yeah, folks, a couple more minutes. See if it picks up here. Why don't you just come out here and, say hi to you folks and hope you guys are doing well. If you have any questions, please feel free. Any questions at all? Anime, sports, anything at all. Current events, advice, whatever the case may be, feel free to ask. More questions the merrier. Again, gets lit. The way these streams work, the length depends on how lit it becomes. So ask questions, they'll get lit. Any questions at all, folks? Any questions at all here? But yeah, the change my mind segment will come soon, certainly. Yeah, folks, a couple more minutes here, a couple more minutes. Wanted to keep going, bring in the questions, folks. Bring in the questions. We'll get lit in here. You know how it goes when these streams do have tons of questions. It's a good time. The more questions, the better. All right, folks. It's been about 45 minutes. Appreciate you guys coming out. For those that did, I'll keep coming. I do like just discussing with you folks. It's always a good time. Much love to you, all you guys that have shown support. I'll keep posting shorts. I do have a video coming soon. Sent it to my editor. Should be out soon. Much love to you folks, and I'll see you next time. Take classy, yeah.